All right, folks. I'm going to do something new with my life, and it's going to be this recording my thoughts every day into a microphone. And I'm not going to think about what I'm saying, so I apologize in advance. But you're going to get some stream of consciousness here. And my goal is to do this every day, to post it on my podcast, but also probably make content out of it so that I'm kind of, getting two birds stoned at once, if you will. I don't even know what I'm going to talk about. Really, I'm very much so interested in showing up to the world in what is consistent in me over time. And the one thing that is consistent in me over time is my experience. My thoughts change all the time. My emotions change all the time. My ability to articulate concepts and frameworks changes over time, but I'm able to share my truth, and that's going to be the foundation of this podcast going forward. Is what am I experiencing? And something that I've been thinking a lot about wanting to share more is my own experience with dream work and with working with Carl Jung psychology in my own life. And something just for fun, I'll tell you my dream that I have been working with most recently. Well, actually, it's an old dream. So when I first got into Carl Jung, I started reading all of his books, and I read his theory on synchronicity, and it didn't make a lot of sense to me the first time through. I've read it 3 times now, but the first time through, I was like, okay. Didn't really understand what he's talking about. It's kind of difficult to this day. I still don't fully grasp it. But one of the things that he mentioned, I can't remember where, maybe in his semi-autobiography, Memories, Dreams, and Reflections, he might mention his experience with the I Ching, the ancient Taoist tradition, like a Chinese tradition, oracle tradition of the I Ching. And I got really excited about this like 3 years ago. I was like, I want to dive into this. I'm really interested in what he was looking at and interested in how his theory of synchronicity started to be stimulated by his earlier experiences with the I Ching. And so I was really excited about this. And then I had this dream where I was at the DI, the Utah thrift store, and I found this book on the shelf, and it was the I Ching. And I was so excited about it in the dream, and I open it up, and it just unfolds. It continues to fold out and fold out and fold out and fold out. And all of a sudden, it's like taking up this huge space in the store. And I'm like, oh shit, I can't close it back up. Like, I can't get it back in. So I'm just completely overwhelmed by this huge unfolding, almost like a map of some sorts. And the emotion in the dream was just complete overwhelm. And so I woke up and was like, immediately like, okay, it's not my time to get into this. I'm not ready for it psychologically. It will be a waste of time for me to dive into I Ching. But I knew, because of the dream, I knew that there was some importance and that I would eventually get into it. So what's really interesting is that over the last 3-4 weeks, I've been deep diving into human design, which is it's such a bizarre framework. It has similar origins to Jung psychology, who, if you know anything about Jung, he had this period of time where he was having visions, somewhat of a controlled psychotic break, and he wrote the Red Book, which also, if you know anything about Tolkien, who wrote Lord of the Rings, he, at the same similar time period across the world, was having visions and wrote a Red Book. And Jung made his psychology out of his Red Book, and Tolkien made the Lord of the Rings out of his Red Book. Very interesting archetypal similarities in there. But somebody else in I think it was like 87 or something, this dude who went by, after the experience, he went by Ra, Uruhu or something. But he had what he called like madness come upon him. He had a psychotic break for 8 days, and then came out of it with this relationship with the I Ching, the zodiac, the Sephiroth, or the Tree of Life, and the chakra system, all coming into one framework. And what was interesting about this is that the I Ching, he sort of created a wheel around the earth, and each section of the sky was or had a energy signature, let's say, a personality signature of each of the I Ching. So you could break the circumference of the sky into all 64 hexagrams of the I Ching. And then those map directly to what he calls the gates in the human body graph, blah, 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 lots of information. But I was like, okay, so this I Ching is coming up in my life again. And started diving really deep into this, and into my, like, I've been watching the moon and what gate it's in, or what hexagram it's in, and then trying to notice any experiences inwardly or outwardly that match these energies, or like these patterns. And started having some interesting experiences, which is similar to what Jung was doing, when he was throwing sticks, which is like the original process of working with the I Ching as an oracle. Whereas this was more so, watching the moon, and watching, because it moves through all 64 gates within a 28-day period. And so you can kind of get a more tangible relationship to patterns over time by watching the moon, and then what's coming up inside of you, what's coming up on the news, on social media, what types of information is being programmed into the collective consciousness. And as I'm diving into this dream of the I Ching unfolding in the thrift store has come back to me very vividly, which is the nature of dreams, is that you'll randomly remember a dream from 4 years ago, 6 years ago, 10 years ago, when it's applicable again, or when it's ready to be looked at again by the ego. And so I got really excited, because I was like, it's time. It's time now. I've spent the last 3 years studying and getting to a place where I'm ready for the information in a sort of way. And so I've been like really excited about this. And then I was listening to like Rick Rubin talk to the dude that made who wrote the book Gene Keys, which I wasn't excited about at all. And then I realized, like, oh, Gene Keys is just a updated language around the I Ching. And so I bought the book, and I've been reading his interpretation of the I Ching, and it's just been very, very interesting and profound, where I understand what this information is now, whereas in the past I was not ready at all. So the whole point of this is not to pump up human design or Gene Keys, but to illuminate this relationship with my dreams that I have, which is that I use them as a map or a guiding system for myself a lot of the times. The dream has so many different purposes, tools. Oftentimes something like this is unique in sort of helping me decide where to put my energy the most efficiently. When I first had the dream, it was like, no, don't put it there yet. And now the dream comes back and says, yeah, put it there now. It's very interesting. It's a communication from my unconscious mind through, and the unconscious mind is unrelated, or the further you get into the unconscious mind, the less in time it is, meaning there's an essence of like fortuitous knowledge that the dream can have, which is very interesting. Especially the ego does not like that idea that this time isn't something we are stuck in. And so you can get very interesting guidance from your unconscious mind, from dreams. Einstein and Jung had conversations around the relativity of time and in context of the unconscious. And the further into the unconscious you go, the less, or the more detached from time you become. And this is like kind of the idea of like the birth, or like the home of the archetypes, which is what the I Ching really kind of is 64 archetypes of programming information. You could even think of it as literally programming, meaning, you know, if we're beings of being programmed by light coming from the neutrino star radiation or whatever, that these neutrinos are this is a human design idea, that the neutrinos are pulling information from these archetypes and then programming your DNA. Yeah, I don't want to go into that right now, but it's an interesting idea. And whether, like, the nature of these types of ideas is fun, because at the bottom of everything, it's unknowable. Everything is unknowable. The bottom of physics, the bottom of biology, every science that we have has an unknown origin because of the Big Bang. We don't know where it all came from. We can say, okay, well, now it's here and we can study everything that's here, but we can't ever go past that point. And there's always a point that you can't go past on everything. And so typically the foundation of any framework is going to be sitting on an unknown. And then we often try to describe the unknown from our paradigm. And that's like human design. He admits this too. He's like, yeah, I went crazy and I experienced something unknowable, and then I use my ego's perspective to put it into a mechanical system. But it's all perspective. Like if you read, I never finished this book, but there's a book called like the Journey of the Souls. And something that's common between everyone's near-death experiences is that they translate the unknowable experience into whatever their ego, whatever their life experience was. The mechanic has a mechanical explanation. The spiritual person has a mystical explanation. Like there's the electrician has like an electrical interpretation. It's very interesting. The nature of being human is that there is vast unknowns at the bottom of everything. And I bring this up just because I'm talking about it like it's this fact, but it's just a way that I think is a fun way to explain an unknowable, meaning these neutrinos that are programming us through the hexagrams of the I Ching. And then you can look at the hexagrams as being 64 gods or sub-gods or something like that, or archetypes, influencing our unconscious mind and then eventually our conscious mind over time, over evolution. But anyway, where was I? I was talking about the dream that I had in the I Ching, but yeah, it's gone, but it doesn't really matter. So this is where my mind is lately, is I'm really taking in a lot of information. And for a while I was feeling like it's sort of derailing me. But I always come back to my experience with Jung's work, which was that I needed to make sense of the cognition that was given birth. It, like the body, the form gives birth to the conscious mind. And so there's this top-down approach that Jung does, which is like, get your ego right, take care of all the symptoms. Not take care of them, but like that's your approach into your unconscious mind, is through your symptoms, meaning through anxiety, through depression, through bipolar, OCD, narcissism, whatever it is, BPD. These are symptoms of a lack of communication between the unconscious mind and the ego, and that you can use them as entry points into what needs to be integrated into consciousness. Literally, the symptom itself is a flag to say, hey, look here, this is your entry point. So in a way, symptoms are neutral. They're not good or bad. They're even, maybe I would say, good, because they point you towards where your growth is. Your growth is most accessible. Anyway, so like for me, I'm trying to think of what my symptoms tend to be. Anxiety. Well, that might be something I talk about later on another podcast when it comes up. Where was I? Where was I going with this? So, I was coming back to Jung. Like I really believe that this exploration, Jung's work and his psychology is all about the subjective experience. I love his quote, every human is an exception to the rule. He created these frameworks, and he sort of, classified things he observed, and he's always like, yeah, if you come up with a better framework, like, I hope so, please do. But it's an entry point into organizing your experience. And that organization is very masculine. And I think that, interestingly enough, I think our species is both repressed, has our masculinity and our femininity repressed. And for me, freeing the masculine and the logos and the structure within my ego, which is, the ego is fundamentally masculine. Everyone's ego is, meaning it's structured in linear time. It speaks in language, and it's very left-brained, if you will. And the unconscious is very feminine and very non-linear and detached from time and detached from language. It uses images and emotion. But in order to understand and to sort of incorporate or integrate the feminine unconscious chaos of our psyche, you need, like I think of it like a bookshelf. You need a shelf to put all the information on. If I don't have the structure and the scaffolding in my ego, I will be swamped, overwhelmed by the tsunami of the unconscious. The dreams don't do anything for you if you don't know how to relate to them, which is through the emotion and the symbolism, meaning the analytical approach is only going to get you so far to a dream. You have to. The whole point of analyzing a dream is to open up any emotional, symbolic information that might be related to the imagery, so that you might experience more emotional depth. So if you can get to the emotion without analyzing, then it's great. It's how I work with a lot of my dreams, is just by waking up and then sitting in the emotion that dream left me. And a lot of times you'll get woken up right before something intense or during something intense, so that you can consciously come online and recognize and digest the emotion that the dream is bringing to you. The dream is bringing you emotion that is not yet conscious. And so if it can catch you awake, it's very much so like EMDR. I mean, EMDR is very much so like dream work. Like a dream I had 2 nights ago. I was in a home and there was a cat. And I was with a woman, and she didn't let the cat out. And I was like, the cat has to pee. Like, I can tell the cat has to go to the bathroom. And it was getting really anxious and stressed. And then eventually I let the cat out. And I'm watching this cat, and it like dives into the water, like into the snowy, muddy water. And it pulls itself under a bush. And it's like, I can see it's like beaming, happy, smiley cat. And it's rolling around in the dirt. And I have to let go of the fact that this cat is getting messy and dirty, and then it hears something and it darts away, and my instinct is like to chase it, but I realize like, no, this cat needs to be free, it'll come back. And I woke up with this image of this smiling cat and this free cat that's able to follow its instinct, and I sit in this feeling of, well, like what that image of the cat smiling or beaming. It wasn't actually smiling. It was just like beaming. And it brought up this freedom of listening to the now and to the instinct of my body and the animal aspect of myself that might not make sense to my rational mind. I'm at a place in my life that I can trust my instincts. Because there was a time when I couldn't really trust my body because it was so dependent. Or I don't even know if that's true. There was so much abuse with drugs and alcohol that I didn't know what was me, what was my body, what was my ego, what was this and that addiction. So it's been a 5-6 year process of like finding out what I can trust and what I can't trust. And my body is something that I can trust, and it's consistent. And this is something that has brought great peace in my life, because I can set aside my mind when it comes to making decisions for myself, because my body knows. My body knows how to make money. It's an energetic thing. It has nothing to do with schemes and plans of my mind. It has everything to do with being in the right energy, or emotion, I should say. They're the same thing, kind of. So this dream, I use it to remember to let go of my mind, let go of what I think I want, let go of what I think is right for me, and to pay attention to the instinctual intuition. This isn't necessarily what's best for everybody either. Like, your dream is very, very subjective. It's very, very oriented towards you and your experience. This is why I like Jung's work, is because it's about the subject. Like, let me give you an example of why I like Jung's work. Synchronicity, the theory of synchronicity, is really the theory of miracles. Jung talks about how, you take the average, you flip a coin 100 times, and you take the average, and it's like 50-50 or whatever. I'm not a statistician, so I don't really know what I'm talking about here. But then there's like the bell curve of like the 1 out of 1,000,000 chances that you flip heads 100 times. But that is discounted from science, meaning that's an anomaly. That's not the average. That's not statistically probable. Yet it happens sometimes. And that's the miracle, is that something happens outside of probability. And so Jung was looking at the ends of the bell curve, saying, okay, well, subjectively, people experience this even though it's not probable, practical, or average. But the study of science is not about what is uniquely experienced. It's about what's experienced averagely. And Jung was more interested in what happens subjectively on the ends of the bell curve. Why do people experience miracles? Whether the miracle is objectively, scientifically a truth doesn't matter to psychology, because that person's experience of it is the fact that we're looking at. And so his theory of synchronicity is exploring the experience of miracles, the experience of the outer edges of the bell curve, the not average experience, the meaningful experiences. So yeah, like dream work isn't about truth, objective meaning. It's about the experience psychologically of extracting meaning. Getting into a relationship with your unconscious is more important than getting a correct interpretation objectively of a dream. It's about the process that is healing to the psyche. And I think that this is fundamentally very important to understand, that it doesn't even matter if you find the correct interpretation. There is no correct interpretation. It's about the experience of extracting meaning. And the meaning in life has to be excavated. It doesn't just approach you. It doesn't just land in your lap. You have to excavate it. You have to mine it out of moments, out of dreams, out of relationships, out of experiences. And this is something that I've been steeping in the last 3 weeks, is like meaning. Like every moment is so meaningful to me. I know it'll ebb and flow, but I'm integrating this capacity to just be steeped in meaning at all times. And that really just looks like intention, getting my mind, like when I get water, I'm like, holy shit, there's water coming out of my sink. Like, what a blessing. What an amazing civilization we live in, that I have drinking water, hot drinking water. I'm not going to drink it hot, but the fact that it can be hot is crazy. And that we take it for granted. How simple everything looks to us is a miracle. It's bizarre. It's a miracle in context of the average human experience over the course of the existence of humans, right? If they saw anything we were doing, it would be miraculous. And for us to pay attention to that, for me to pay attention to that, brings more meaning into my life. It brings genuine gratitude into my life. And that feeling of gratitude upregulates growth hormones, meaning helps me live longer, puts me into a state of healing and of cell division that is in the proper environment versus, stress or fear that leads to incoherent environment, an acidic environment in your body that then breeds mutation and cancer. Anyway, so I've been a little bit stressed about money, which is annoying to me because when I get stressed about money, it doesn't do anything for me. Money has always come to me when I'm in the right mental state, which is gratitude. It sounds stupid. I would have hated hearing that from me, but it's true. My mind has never solved my problem. I think it helps a lot of other people get in touch with themselves, and that's what I like about my brain, is that I can conceptualize and build on top of frameworks and then teach them and apply them in a way that brings people closer to their excavation of meaning and truth and purpose and belonging, brings them closer to themselves. And then when I get to be around people who are attached to themselves or know themselves, I get a better experience. And so it's like a win-win for everybody. But money comes with finding yourself. Money's interesting because people think of it as tangible, but it's not. It's abstract. It's on the highest ladder of abstraction. There's only it's a symbol. It's not even an icon. It's a symbol. We're not quite sure what it is. We relate to something almost unknowable through the idea of money. When you start to understand that, you understand the flow of money and of authority. Money's attracted to authority. If I can find myself and my authority, meaning if I can make decisions based off of my truth, my connection to what is consistent in me, my integrity, that authority that I take back opens up channels of opportunity, both through for money and for relationship and for people. This world is very bizarre that we live in. This illusion of separateness. It's good stuff. Anyway, I think that's it for now. Thanks for listening. I'm going to try to do this every day. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. Love and peace, as they say. Take it easy. Book a session with me if you want to start working on this stuff. I will teach you.